everyone, happy new year and welcome to my video. Things are kind of chaotic around here. We're working on taking Christmas stuff down. I'm way behind in my videos because in the last month I've lost my studio recording areas and people have been home on vacation, so I've lost some of the privacy for filming. So I had a little time in between taking down Christmas and hanging out on New Year's Day to get this video out. And I wanted to show you what I'm reading for the month of January. And already I've read 3 of them today. I have a specific formula I use for how I read 9 to 10 books a month. Always 9, 10 is often a bonus. I'm going to release that video in a few days and tell you my exact formula, how I do that. But for now, I want to show you my picks for January. So I love to read cold, wintry reads in January and February. So I've chosen a good, like 16, maybe 15 books. My goal is to also read, my goal is to read maybe about 2 books a month from the New York Times bestsellers, greatest books of the 21st century list, which are not winter. So I can get a certain amount done by the end of the year. But beyond that, everything I have is winter. And so what I'm reading for January, which is 3 books at a time, I'm going to talk about. One of them I started today. It is amazing. I'm sorry, I started all 3 of them today. Actually, I started the 4th one as well, but one of them that I love the most of that I started is probably this book, Snow and Rose by Emily Martin. Oh, you can see my shadow. Woo, look at that on the green wall back there. Snow and Rose by Emily Martin. This is not a new book by any means. It's been around a long time. I've had it forever. It's kind of wintry. I've never read it. It's a fairy tale. It's absolutely beautiful. The prose, I've probably read the first 30 pages. The prose has some nice lyrical prose, some lovely descriptions, very like magical and comforting. And I love how there's some color, there's some illustrations in here. It's a really sweet and nice so far. It's about 2 sisters, Snow and Rose. One is black hair raven, pale. One is almost albino white, complete opposites. And they had a loving, wonderful, happy family. The mother, wanted to be able to express her love for her daughters who were very unique. So she made a very famous garden, which is half red flowers, brilliant red flowers, and half white, brilliant flowers. Then of course the father goes missing into the woods, their wonderful father. And then the mother goes into a deep depression. And then because there's no male, matriarchal, figure in the family, because the father's disappeared, they get pushed out by the town people into this little kind of cabin in the woods, right? Kind of Snow White-ish. I'm not seeing anything reminiscent so far that makes me think of any kind of a Hans Christian Andersen or Grimm's fairy tale or anything like that. Obviously there's some parallels, I imagine, but it is really good so far. I'm really enjoying it. I really liked the first paragraph. Rose had hair like threads of black silk and cheeks like 2 red petals and a voice that was gentle and sometimes hard to hear. Snow had hair like white swan down feather and eyes the color of the winter sky, with a laugh that was sudden and wild. Very good. I'm really enjoying it. There's a lot of, it's not entirely winter, but there's a lot of wintry scenes in the forest, so that's why I picked that one. Love it so far. And the next one that I'm really enjoying, really enjoying so far. And I read his other book. Oh gosh. Did I read 2 of his other books? Oh, I did. I think he wrote, let me look at the, I'm looking at the intro. Maybe I didn't. I'm thinking of a different one else. Anyway, this is Road of Bones by Christopher Golden. This is fantastic. It's a suspense thriller. It is amazing. So this is, I don't know if this, I'm fixing my camera. I don't know if this is technically like a historical fiction, but the Road of Bones is a real road in Siberia. You can go to YouTube and see a lot of YouTube shorts that show the Road of Bones. It's called the Kuntian Highway or something like that. I don't know if I can spell it for you. Route 504, Kolmaya, Kolma, K-O-L-Y-M-A highway. It started being built in 1935, finished in 1955, and it was so cold, like 30 to 50 below zero. Mostly it was gulags, prisoners that were forced to build the road for Stalin, and it was so freezing, and often they only had to cover their face like a thin bandana or something, or a scarf, and I think like 1 million people or something died, froze to death as they were building the road, and the permafrost just went over the bodies. So if you drive this road of bones, it is littered with bodies, thousands and thousands of bodies underneath the ice. So this is about two friends, one's American, one is British, I guess, who are one of them's a ghost hunter and a journalist, and he's there to investigate, if there's any kind of paranormal activity with all the deceased, bones and bodies underneath this road of bones in the winteriest, miserable depths of Siberia. And so far it is like the chillest, I'm just cold reading it. And I don't ever get cold. It is so well described for a winter, it reminds me of Empire Strikes Back. Is that the Empire Strikes Back? The snow planet? And Luke has to is it Luke? He has to cut the gut open of the animal and go inside and warm himself, and it's like an ice planet everywhere. Kind of is like that. But anyway, they're traveling their route to go there, trying to drive this road and to get to a certain town to do investigative journalism stuff. And then they get to the town and it is become a ghost town. Everyone's disappeared. No one knows where anyone is. There's these weird wolves running around and it's kind of a mystery. And that's as far as I got. So it's really good. It is just brilliant. The winter descriptions. I don't think I've ever read a book quite as wintry as this so far. And I'm only 30 pages in. Okay. Next is the book I'm reading that is not a winter read, but I'm reading this month from my modern 21st century books. It is absolutely incredible so far. It's the winner of the Booker Prize, The Vegetarian by Han Kang. It is insane, how intriguing this book is. This is the first book. I'm not reading the list in a particular order. The first book, I picked about 15 for this year. I just grabbed one randomly. This is the first one I'm reading. It is just so absorbing. It is interesting. So there's a woman. It's from the perspective of a man who picked the most plainest, boringest, ugliest, simplest, quietest, meekest, perfect wife imaginable to uncomplicate his life, to not challenge him, to not speak, to be his servant, blah, 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 and how boring and ugly and unattractive she is, but how she's a perfect wife to him until she suddenly became a vegetarian, and she finally became interesting to him because she did weird stuff. And the book starts out with all that description and backstory, and then how she kind of comes to life. She has a dream. She had a dream, a mutilating, blood-curdling, terrible dream, she transported into the bodies of the animals who are tortured and murdered for their flesh to be eaten. And suddenly she decides to throw out and this is in Asia, so every kind of meat and bat and snail and eel and squid and all the other weird stuff they described she had in her fridge, which includes beef and fish and everything, and how she's eating seaweed and soybean curds. And he's like, "What is wrong with you? What are you doing?" Well, and she won't speak. She's in some kind of a trance because she had some kind of a vision, almost like her soul transported into the animals. And so that's as far as I got, but it's extremely hooking. And I'm a vegetarian. My son is vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian since I was 19, as has my son has been vegetarian since he's 19. He's 27. Now, that's not why I picked up this book. I picked up the book because it's on the list. But it reads more it's kind of reading like a thriller. It's what is going on? It's kind of on the edge of your seat. She's acting strange and weird. There's a little horror aspects in there from the description of her dream, how horrific and terrible it is. And then there's this kind of modern day historical context of how a woman is portrayed as a housewife in this culture, and the misogyny in there. It's really, really good. And again, 30 pages in. I read about 30 pages a day. Every 10 days I start a new batch of 3 books. It says, before the nightmares began, young Hai and her husband live an ordinary, uncontrolled life, but the dreams, invasive images of blood and brutality torture her, driving her to purge her mind and renounce eating meat altogether. It's a small act of independence in her dismal life, but it interrupts her marriage and sets into motion a grotesque chain of events at home. So it's got that thriller, horror, like kind of suppressed woman vibe to it. Really good. Very, very good. Okay, I also started today. This is on my list for the month. So I actually have 10 books. I read 9 books a month, and I have a 10 that I aim to read a little when I can, so I can get in a 10th one, but I don't force myself to finish it, whereas the others I read on a timeline. This is really awesome. I just got this at Barnes & Noble. It's Viviana Valentine's. Viviana Valentine Goes Up the River. It's a Girl Friday mystery. Fun, vintage style cover. I really enjoy this. It's set in the 1950s New York, and it is also has a wintry theme. So it's very, just from the first 2 chapters I read, it's very like, the dialogue is kind of like what you see in an old movie, you know, using the word like, hey, mister, hey, buster, and that fella, you know, that kind of dialogue. Great descriptions of 1950s clothing, the chain smoking everywhere. But it's about a woman who has earned her way up to become a detective, make a male partner, which is unheard of at the time. And they're about to get hired by a guy to go to this kind of desolate mansion-y type place where they're going to be stuck in there during a blizzard. And things all go south real quick. 1950 New York. Viviana Valentine, Girl Friday turned partner to New York's top investigator, is drawn into a sordid new case when Buster Beacon, a wealthy man of science, beckons them to a party at his mansion north of the city, where he entertains blue-blooded friends as well as investors. When they start hearing strange noises, crimes happening, expansive estate, mysteries, snowed in during the party. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie vibe. Actually, this is very similar to what I just read, The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year, which is an amazing book, which I absolutely adored for Christmas. Similar style, but more straight up film noir style and writing and time period and historical reference. And I have no idea what it's going to happen. That's just so far all I got to, but it's a real fun, pretty book. I bet you I could have got it cheaper on Amazon than Barnes & Noble. All right, let me tell you the ones I haven't started, which are for my later in the month of January. So I have this book. I don't know how to pronounce the author, but it's called The Blue Fox by Sjon, S-J-O-N, winner of the Nordic Council Literature Prize. It's supposed to be like a really, like magical, snowy, wintry read that takes place kind of on the Icelandish mountainside, kind of like with a fable retelling. It's a real short, small read. It was a recommendation. It's supposed to be a really like poetic and mesmerizing and like addicting with his like winter lyrical style of writing. And that's the kind of story and writing that I love. On a stark Icelandic mountain, the imposing Reverend can't pronounce it, hunts an elusive blue vixen for her near mythical pelt. The treacherous journey across snow and ice will push his physical and mental endurance to the limit. In Balgador's parish, a young woman with Down syndrome is buried. After being found shackled to the timbers of a shipwreck in 1868, she was rescued by the naturalist, blah, 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 another name I can't pronounce. Now he will open the package she always carried with her, hoping to solve the mystery of her origins of a crime that was never solved. As the ice begins to melt, the mystery surrounding the trio's connected fates, including the fox, all unravel. So it's supposed to be very intriguing, kind of fable, and so I did get quite a few awards. So, I mean, I could probably read that in 3 days. No big whoop. All right, I have The Clockwork Crow by Catherine Fisher. This is a middle grade read, fantasy, highly renowned. Lots of talk about this book. It's several years old. I've had it on my shelf. I've never read it. It's wintry, perfect snowy magic for the holidays or winter. When orphaned, Saren Rise boards a train to Wales. The only magic she hopes to find is that of her family. But when a mysterious package containing a bad-tempered clockwork crow ends up in her care, she realizes that nothing at this place she is going will be quite as she hoped. Her guardian's son is nowhere to be found and is missing, and the few servants at the manor who keep this empty manor house running whisper tales of the fair family, the Fae, with children who were once taken. So it just goes on to like she gets to this manor and nothing is as it seems, and it's empty and it's kind of disappointing, but there's like magical creatures and whatnot, and that's all like a snowy wonderland. So this is just my kind of read. I do enjoy a lot of middle grade reads if they're written like a mature, intelligent middle grader, like where you almost wouldn't feel like you're reading middle grade. Those are the kind of middle grade books I like. All right, more January reads. I have here Joe Nesbo's The Snowman. True story. I met a gal on Facebook in a collectible group I have for some collectibles for my Charlie bears, and we were talking. She bought some bears from me. No, I bought bears from her. Yeah, I bought bears from her from England, and we started talking about writing, and she started talking about the Joe Nesbo books and asked if I read The Snowman. I'm like, no, that was 2 years ago. And then I just happened to see this at the used bookstore, and I picked it up. I remembered that conversation. But it's an Inspector Harry Hole mystery. It's kind of, like you have the Jack Reacher series, or that kind of thing. It's Henry Hole is kind of like, there's a whole series of books by this inspector, kind of like in Agatha Christie's Inspector Poirot. Has a series of mysteries he solves, but it's more modern day suspense thriller, crime. It's also a major motion picture, so I've not seen the movie, don't even know anything about it, so I will not be watching that movie until I read the book. One night after the year's first snowfall, a boy named Jonas wakes up and discovers that his mother has disappeared. Only one trace of her remains, a pink scarf, his Christmas gift to her, now worn by the snowman that appeared in their yard earlier that day. Inspector Harry Hole suspects a link between the missing woman and her suspicious letter that was received long before her disappearance. The case deepens when a pattern emerges that over the past decade, 11 women have vanished, all on the first day of snow for the year. So this will be interesting, like a crime read. Never read a Henry Hole mystery. Don't know how it'll be. All right. Next, I have a New York Times bestseller, Isabel Allende, In the Midst of Winter, a novel. Again, pick this up at my Goodwill thrift book shopping haul. I did a whole video on how to buy books thrift shop with my going around and buying books. You can link that below if you want to see it. Don't know anything about this, not a single thing. New York Times bestselling author delivers a sweeping novel that brings together 3 very different people in the mesmerizing story that travels from present-day Brooklyn to Guatemala in the 1970s, Chile, and then to Brazil. Amidst the biggest Brooklyn snowstorm in living history, Richard Baumaster, a lonely university professor in his 60s, hits the car of Evelyn Ortega, a young undocumented immigrant from Guatemala. What at first seems an inconvenience takes a more serious turn when Evelyn comes to his house for help. At a loss, the professor takes her in. As these 3 lives intertwine, along with a professor from Chile, each will discover truths about how they have been shaped by these tragedies they've witnessed and come together and what their connection is. So it's kind of more like a hope inspiration, showing the greatness of humanity drama type book is kind of the feel I'm getting. So probably a little bit of tragedy in there as well. I saved my beast for last. This is Kristen Hanna's The Great Alone. Never read a Kristen Hanna. There are a lot of Kristen Hanna books I've heard about, The Nightingale in particular. I did buy a 4-box book set of Kristen Hanna books after this one from Book Outlet. That was like $23 for 4 big books. This one, though, is kind of right up my alley. Takes place in Alaska. It's about a woman and her, I guess, daughter or kids who are trapped in Alaska in an abusive marriage and how she has to escape that into the tundra kind of a scenario. This was a #1 library reads pick. Oprah's list of best books to read, Washington Post 50 most notable books, and the best of 2018 from the New York Post. Alaska, 1974, the year I was born. The Albrights are a family in crisis. They are alone, living off the grid in a harsh and unforgiving wilderness. Ernst Albright has come home from the Vietnam War, a changed, volatile man, and has made the decision to move his wife and daughter to Alaska. Cora will do anything for the man she loves, even if it means following him to the unknown. 13-year-old Lenny, caught up in the riptide of her parents' passionate, stormy relationship, has little choice but to go. Even though they've found a small, independent community of strong men and women in winter approaching the darkness, deepest depths of Alaska, the husband's mental health starts deteriorating. Soon the perils outside pale in comparison to the threats from within the home. This is about her sweeping, unforgettable portrait of escape from domestic abuse in a wintry entrapment setting. So I think this will be fascinating. I've heard great things about it. I'm excited to read it. If you've read any of these books, let me know if you have any other great winter recommendations. I do have some I'm saving for my February video, but I have room to add a few. So that is everything I'm reading for January, you guys. I have to do my video of all I read in December and my reviews on that, which I'll do the next few days. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.